In this video, I'm going to show you my process of making this Christmas sweater from scratch. I started this project by taping my mom's holiday tablecloth to the wall. This step is optional. I then picked out my yarn. The yarn I'm using for this project is Harrisville Highland, which is a beautiful wool spun from a historical mill that I hope to visit one day. The next step is to make a warp. I really wanted to try to make a Christmassy plaid-inspired design, which requires a really specifically designed warp, which is something I've never done before. So I decided to study some pictures of plaid, and then wing it and make up a plaid design of my own. In this time-lapse, you'll see me winding yarns around the pegs of a warping board, and I'm counting threads and changing colors fairly often, which is what gives the plaid fabric its unique design. It doesn't look like much at the moment because I squished so much yarn onto this warping board, but the design will be really visible when it's on the loom. I then spent about 3 hours struggling to thread the loom, but eventually I got it done, and I was actually super surprised by how well it turned out. The next step is to wind bobbins. I'm gonna weave with the same yarns that I used to make the warp, so I need to wind the yarns from the cones onto bobbins so that they're easier to weave with. Now that the bobbins are wound and the loom is decorated, it's time to start weaving. I didn't really go into the weaving part of this project with any specific plans in mind. I just knew that I did not want to make a perfect plaid that repeats the exact same way across the entire length of the fabric. My goal was to make something more random, that still gave off plaid vibes, so I just made little plaid-inspired repeats and changed it up every few rows. I had a lot of fun playing around with the designs, and I even threw in some clasped weft weaving, which kind of reminded me of icicles. I have a tutorial for this technique, and I'll leave a link in my description if you're interested in checking it out. After about 3 days of weaving, I was at the end of my warp and was ready to take the finished fabric off the loom. Oh no. And lastly, I tied knots at the fringes so that the fabric wouldn't unweave itself. The next step is to wash the fabric. I filled the bathtub with hot water and Eucalan wool wash and submerged the fabric for about 20 minutes. Every few minutes or so, I stirred the fabric around to encourage the wool to shrink a little bit. I then laid the wet fabric onto towels, rolled it up, and did a little dance to help remove some of the excess water before hanging it up to dry. Here's a super helpful visual so you can get an idea of just how big the fabric was after washing it. The last step is to sew the sweater. I picked out a sewing pattern from the Saori Black Book that I thought would make for a super cozy winter sweater. Number 50, an oversized button-up with cute puffy sleeves and a little collar. This pattern was tricky because all I had to work from was a diagram of the finished garment and some instructions in Japanese, which I don't understand. But thankfully, Frankie was there to help me figure it all out. I started by cutting out the front and the back of the coat. I might look confident cutting my hand-woven fabric, but what you don't see in this video is me pacing around the room for about an hour before finally having the courage to start cutting. I then cut out the sections for the sleeves and the collar. And then I sewed along every single cut edge so that the fabric wouldn't unweave itself. Normally, when working with hand-woven fabric, you'd want to sew the edges first and then cut just to be extra safe. But because I had slightly felted this fabric, I was more confident that the fabric wasn't going to fall apart on me. I put together the body of the jacket with Frankie's supervision. I then cut out the sleeve pieces, which for some reason was much more challenging than I expected. and then I spent the rest of the night assembling the jacket. And here's how my Christmas jacket turned out. This is probably my favorite hand-woven fabric that I've made so far, and I'm so excited to include this jacket in my winter wardrobe. I would love to start a tradition of making a Christmas sweater every year, and I think that this is the perfect jacket to kick off that tradition. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you'd like to see more weaving videos, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. You can also follow me on Instagram at AndreaAlexanderArt.